Hello, welcome to the final video that I'm doing about Eternal Doom. This is map 28. If you've noticed, oh god, okay, this beginning, a shotgun, riot armor, and 2 boxes of shells at the start of the SCHMITZ level, and you're still here? Oh yes. Classic beginning. The sign above also said, ye abandon all hope who enter here. Yeah, so SCHMITZ is Paul Schmitz, who is the designer of this map, who, as far as I know, only did one other thing in Eternal Doom, which is like map 12, I think. No. Map... whatever. 10 maybe. I'll figure it out. I love that beginning because it's so perfectly indicative of the... Oh, map 7. Okay, that's what it is. I love that beginning because it's so perfectly indicative of the cheesy 90s spirit that you can really see, the 90s maximalism that you can really see in Eternal Doom. And this map is just a perfect, just pitch perfect sort of testament to that. It's really cool and unique, and it's also really kind of cheesy in some ways, but I really admire this map. I think it's very unique. If you look on this map, on the auto map, it looks like a fucking mess. It's confusing as hell. There's actually only 100 monsters in this map, but it really makes you feel that. Which I think is really cool. I'm always happy when somebody manages to use like relatively limited monster counts in a way that is like, you know, still difficult and interesting. And you will see I will struggle with health and staying alive on this map. I also didn't really rehearse playing through this very much because I kind of like struggling to get through for videos sometimes. Because even though it takes up more time and it's like kind of frustrating to watch sometimes, it gives you a better sense of like what the map actually is, if that makes sense. Yeah, this is... So, SCHMITZ's other level was called the Abbey. It's map 7 in Eternal Doom, and it also starts you off in this like big circular room, but it's, you know, themed medieval. This is more sci-fi with kind of a medieval mixture. I apologize for the Z fighting here. It's really annoying. I tried to like mess with texture settings to see if that switch like Z fighting would go away, but I couldn't figure it out. I was thinking of just recording this in like an old version of Z Doom that I have where it doesn't do that, but whatever. I recorded the other versions in GZ Doom, so I'm recording this one in it as well. Plus a lot of the recordings have been kind of dark. So yeah, Eternal Doom. Paul Schmitz was the organizer, or at least like the co-organizer, one of the directors of Eternal Doom. So even though he only did these 2 maps, I think he was a big, you know, had a big impact on Doom in this particular set. He also has a 3-level map set called The Artifact, which I've never played, so I guess I should check that out before I say anything. I wouldn't say he has like as distinctive as a style, like an auteur style, as like our friend Bob Evans or Jim Flynn, whose maps I've still yet to play on this video series, or Spheric Fernmel. But maybe I'm only saying that just because I've only played a couple of his maps. But the Abbey, outside of having that circular area, is laid out quite differently. That's kind of why I like this map. It is pretty self-contained, and even though it's confusing as hell, it's really like there's not any like tricks. It's just that the layout is complicated. There's like not tricks to completing this. There aren't these like tricky puzzles or whatever. It's really just navigation. I actually kind of like that. I don't know. I feel like it's true to the spirit of Doom, getting lost in this like weirdly tech and, you know, weird mixture of places and environments. There's something true to that. And even though this is really just like rooms connected to rooms connected to rooms, a lot of the rooms do feel kind of different from each other, which I think is interesting. I love the ladders. That's an addition that I actually think you'll see like more in, you know, some of the more clever contemporary Doom mods will have stuff like that. So there's a lot of good ideas here. Those railings are not too bad. They actually work like aesthetically. This level actually generally works aesthetically, considering, you know, Eternal Doom is kind of a mess anyway. It does make it impossible to, like, if you look on the auto map, it is impossible to find your way in this map. You just kind of have to use your intuition, I guess. Here, I'm having a progression problem. I'll figure it out in a second. I have to go over that railing. This is actually where I've gotten stuck multiple times in this map. I have to unlock this one area that requires hitting a switch, and to do that, and then once I do that, to pick up that chain gun that's like blocked off right now, and then once I do that, I can go ride the railing and be able to get to the other side, but right now I'm locked off from doing anything. In other parts of the map, you know, like towards the beginning it limits you a little bit. There's usually one way forward, although it's not always easy to tell that. I apologize if you hear a giant honking horn in the background. It'll just add interesting ambiance, I guess. This map also gives you right away, you know that you're going to fight a cyber demon, which is kind of interesting. It's in such narrow quarters that I don't know how interesting of a cyber demon fight it is, but it is one of the later maps. And I don't know, it doesn't annoy me that much because there's so much else going on with the place that you're in. Okay, let's see if we can find more information about Mr. SCHMITZ. Well, there really isn't much. I would say with this map, I have seen it talked about in a generally favorable light by people now. And it's one of the handful of maps that got mentioned as like an honorable mention on like the Doom World's like most memorable levels list recently. So I think people do generally regard it pretty well. I'm just like, I can't get over the like the thing at the beginning where it's like 2 shotgun shells and a riot armor in a SCHMITZ level. That's like, it's this like cheesy machismo thing that, you know, is very much a part of these like 90s games, but also, you know, in the presence of more high concept ideas, there's kind of a weird dissonance between those two things. It's like you're in this really complex environment, but there's these kind of really cheesy aspects of it. I don't know, there's a lack of self-consciousness about it, which I actually kind of like, but is also a bit ridiculous. Yeah, you can see I have to climb onto that railing, but I need to come from where the chain gun is right now. Oh, and in this circular hallway, like, there will be parts of the hallway that open up as you get to them, so you can go back to them a little more easily, which, you know, is helpful. Again, it really, I mean, regardless of anything, this map is still fucking confusing, and you'll still get lost, and I got, like, ridiculously lost. But I'd say this is one that I actually, I don't know, it's like, even though like a lot of this playthrough is me getting lost, it's still 30-ish minutes long, which is like shorter than the other maps that I played through. So it shows you like that the actual space that you're covering in this map is smaller, and you are generally moving through things. Like it's just a matter of like, you know, getting to those points. I think this is required progression, because every time I played this map I've had to go this way, so I might be wrong about that, but I mean, it's not hard to do. It's just hard to know what is intended and what is just broken in a map like this. There's an elevator later on that I remember working when I played this map that was not working at all. It was just making this like, I'm trying to lift sound. So that's kind of weird. I like the way that this map has its own logic about, you know, the ways that it gives you weapons. There is a sort of sense. It has my favorite thing, which is like, it's bizarre, it's confusing, but there is like a weird sense of logic or internal consistency to it when you think about it. It's just funny because, you know, I talked about one reason for talking about Doom maps, and, you know, I've gone over this a lot, is it's a kind of like example of real authorship from individual authors, and like you really sensing a particular sensibility of a particular designer or whatever. And I assume Paul Schmitz has a particular style, but I didn't really get, aside from like being circular, I didn't really get that from his other map. And I don't know if his other maps quite feel like that, so I don't know if you would call him an auteur or not. I mean, that's a whole weird thing in cinema of, like, there are certain directors who have directed plenty of great films who are not considered auteurs for whatever reason. Not that it really matters. You know, at the end of the day, I'm most interested in finding... A lot of the stuff that I'm the most interested in is by authors that, you know, not much is known about. Maybe they only have a few maps or whatever. Because, you know, no one's inclined to see that within the context of, you know, anything but, you know, maybe the one or two other maps by that author. They're not, like, present in a community. They don't have, like, a personality you necessarily know what it is. So you kind of just have to go based off of the work. And I kind of like that. I don't know. For someone who is very present on social media, it might be weird and hypocritical for me to say, but I don't necessarily want to know that much about the person, you know, before experiencing their art. Like, especially, like, just because I think there is a degree to which we think that personalities, like, define everything, and that, you know, there are certain things that you can't do if you're a certain personality, that kind of, like, prescriptivism about that. Which I think it's much easier to say about people if you know more details about them and who they are. And if somebody has a popular perception of you and what your work is or whatever, then they'll have a perception of what you can and can't do, which I don't like. I think anybody should, you know, be able to go in the direction that they want to, and I think, like, one of the most interesting things about any kind of art or artistic creation is, like, the idea that you can sort of transcend specific ideas of yourself, as I plasma gun a cyber demon to death. But, you know, there is, like... I fully understand and appreciate the irony of talking about, like, very high concept things while I'm, like, mowing down demons. That's just where we live on the internet now. That's just how it is. Yeah, I don't really have that much to say about this map because I do feel like it speaks for itself. I will say it is confusing. It's probably not quite as confusing as it might look. But maybe I'm being generous. I generally feel like it, you know, you have a vague idea and know where to go. Outside of one thing, which is when I get the red key, I have to go all the way back to, like, a part at the beginning of the map where with those switches that are Z fighting, like, and that's not super easy to know. That's not very, like, well drawn out progression. But other than that, I feel like it does a pretty good job. Even though it's confusing. I also feel like this map, this is going to be the last thing that I end up doing, is lowering that switch. But you never know if it's like a bug. It's like, okay, I can get that, but maybe I'm supposed to get the blue one and it's like glitching out, especially when you play stuff in new ports that they were not intended to be played in. I don't really have much to say about this map. Oh, here's this area. Okay, I like this area when it gets into more... So I'm just like, oh, okay, fuck these guys, I'm gonna run away. And then, you know, more and more of these revenants unleash themselves. And if I had gone to a different room, I'd be able to pick up more ammo. I do have a plasma gun now, but I'm pretty fucked right now. So I'm going to be like really struggling to take care of these guys for a while. I like this room though. It kind of hits you unexpected. There's still these futuristic lights, but it's turned into this more gothic, like dark hallway. So it's changed the vibe a little bit. And this being concurrent with like a big ambush makes a lot of sense to me. It's good, like, you know, outlining of what the purpose of a space might be. I don't know. So you can see, like, even though these rooms, they're just like a bunch of connected rooms, because of all the details, and the fact that different sections of the level feel differently, it does feel distinct, and it feels like you are progressing, at least to a certain point. You know, you end up having to go back to the beginning, which kind of ruins that feeling of progression at the end, you know, to hit that one switch. And that was like multiple times when I played this map, the 2 points that I got lost were when you have to go over that railing where the chain gun is, and then where you where you have to go back and hit that switch. So it is a little bit confusing, but I feel like this is just a tighter and more complete package than a lot of the Eternal Doom maps that you know, purport to do or attempt to do kind of more high concept kind of stuff, but don't really manage it as well and are kind of just more rambly in terms of layout. This really like sends you from one thing to the next really quickly without you really having to cover much ground. And I like the feeling of, you know, when you go back into that central hallway and a new area is unlocked, it's like that's where you began, but it's also you can just go right back there and come back through there. There's like, you are actually near all these spaces at the beginning, but you're not really fully aware of that, and you can't, there's something weird it does to your brain spatially, which I really like. Yeah, I'm going to come back to that area much later. That's a teleporter that I don't even know if you have to go through that teleporter. Finding these switches is really the challenge of this level. Usually they're in, you know, relatively comprehensible places. They're not just hidden in random places, but it's just because there's so many rooms and, you know, little alcoves and stuff that it really, you have to look in every one. Yeah, gosh, I don't know really what to say about this level. I think it's one that is worth playing. I think there's still, it's one that I think isn't as dated. I think it feels very much itself. I think this map can stand up next to, you know, a lot of maps in contemporary Doom WODs that have, you know, more custom textures and things like that. Outside of maybe like one or two things. Of course, there's still the, you know, extremely 90s thing of like the beginning of this map, but which is kind of an interesting harbinger or whatever, because it really doesn't let you in on the fact that this map actually has aged pretty well. I mean, the combat is like cramped and, you know, difficult, but I think that's the whole point of this map, so that's not really a strike against it. Things feel intentional, basically. And you can see that even though this map is maybe theoretically shorter in length, and there's only 100 monsters, this is something that somebody worked a lot on. Somebody worked very hard on this map, and maybe that's why he only contributed 2 maps to this entire set. Yeah, I don't know, it's funny, I was like, I might do videos about a map set called Strain, which is also from, I think it's from 1997 as well, and it also has some higher concept ideas. It feels very similar in some ways to Eternal Doom, not in terms of like the layout of the levels, but trying to do these more high concept things, but having this like cheesy machismo. Here's the lift area that I'm pretty sure is supposed to activate, but is not activating. I swear to God, I played through this level before and those lifts activate, but I could just be tripping or something. I don't know. I don't know why it's not working now, or why I thought it would be working. I don't know. I like that you can break the glass. That's very nice. Even though I know it's just like an additional little texture. What else was that? Oh, there's another set called Strain, and I remember like looking back, and the team was called Alpha Dog Alliance, which just like is really just like a perfect example of this like 90s machismo. And like one of the maps that I was considering looking at was like there was like an old interview on someone's like GeoCities type webpage for this set back in like 1997 that might still be up, or at least like I found it on Archive. I think it was linked somewhere. And it was just like, yeah, we're trying to do the like absolute most badass features, and like we're trying to, really like, it's just like the way that the like modders were talking about these things that are actually like really weird. You can see where that teleports me. Things that are like really weird in the context of today seemed like these like ultra machismo cool things like in the context of the 90s. I think the most like classic example of that, I apologize for the occasional dropping frames and stuff, by the way, but I think the most classic example of that is Duke Nukem 3D. It's this game that like you can't tell if it's making fun of itself or if it really thinks it's that badass, and maybe it doesn't matter because it's all just this like weird mix of things that doesn't seem to fully make sense. But there is something like really kind of interesting about that mix that something that is more elegant loses. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's why I like some of these 90s mods too, is that you can play some levels, that are really terrible, that don't really go much of anywhere, or kind of tedious or whatever. And then you can play some that are really just, there isn't really anything else like it. And it is a mixed bag, but I don't feel like you often get that as much today. I might just be like exaggerating slightly because if you play like Joy of Mapping sets, you will see that variance among authors and among people. So that stuff does exist, but I don't think in the more like marquee sets that people talk about with the more super high concept ideas, you don't see that nearly as much. And that is actually why I like those Joy of Mapping sets, by the way, even though they have like a limitation that limits, someone from making a map that's like this. There is like something really cool about just seeing a bunch of a bunch of people's ideas in the same place, and coming up against each other, and you can see all the different approaches that people are thinking of. It's like really good if you're making your own maps and you're trying to come up with like, well, how would I do this idea? How would I do that idea? You can just see it right in this like condensed pile of things. I always love that. I think that's what I like about, I tend to prefer an experience that's unexpected more than something that's like polished. I tend to prefer something that's gonna like take me on like a little bit of a journey, and I don't quite know where I'm going, because I want to be surprised. Because why else would I don't know, why else would I play something? I understand there are other reasons to play something. This is like the central area. It's a little confusing to know you have to activate these consoles, even though it doesn't really make a sound when you actually activate them. I swear those lifts are supposed to activate. And then they'll like you know, there's like these concrete things that you can walk, teleporters or whatever, that you can walk through after that once you activate those consoles, but the feedback isn't really good for that. I didn't know that I could enter them. I like this room. I don't know why, that like hub room, because it's like there's something darker about it. I don't really like the brown textures as much. Yeah, it's a nice room. We're back here. We'll end up coming back here a lot. I really wish the teleporter went all the way back to the beginning of the map. Eventually, I'm just going to give up on trying to get the blue key for right now, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out where the switch to activate the blue key so that it will lower, because I tried to pick it up much earlier. I'm trying to figure out how to get there, and I'll find it eventually. It's just, you know, it's one of those things. But right now, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning part of the map so that I can, with the Z fighting, so that I can hit that yellow key switch, which again, not necessarily clear what it opens up, but at least you can turn around and see there. That like weird circular light thing is interesting. I like these lockers. I don't know, there's something neat about them. You can see the lighting is definitely something that was worked on like pretty intensely. There's a lot of like diagonal lighting in this map, a lot of details, a lot of like texture trim and variance. A lot going on in this map. Yeah, it teleports me back here. So I think in some level it's assuming... So I was able to activate that switch. And I can go through there. Even though it doesn't look like I can go through there, I can go through there, which is kind of ridiculous. So I activated that switch, which activates this side, but I still need to pick up the blue key. And I don't know if I activated anything for the blue key now, or I just missed a switch earlier that I needed to hit. If I had not killed that cyber demon, by the way, which was technically like in a secret area, I don't know why it counts it as a secret, it would be shooting at me like right now. So I'm very happy that's the reason why I went to the effort to kill that cyber demon, and I presume that's why they gave you an invulnerability to take care of that with. And there was enough ammo to do that. Like, I mean, I did pistol start this map and struggle with ammo a little bit earlier, but there was some options. So I'd say this map is okay balanced. You just have to know where to go. So yeah, right now I'm searching for what switch might open up the blue key, and I'm hopelessly lost. I'll find it pretty shortly, so you'll be able to see. But it is extremely easy to get lost in this map. You keep going back to the same places, and there's probably one doorway that you missed, or one series of doorways. It's like this weird recursive puzzle. It looks like kind of amazing on the map, but it's also like, wow, I need to progress through this. Jesus. You just kind of have to put your head down and like push through it. I don't know. I don't know why I don't mind. I think when I see a map that has this level of like detail and thought put into it in other ways, it doesn't annoy me as much to have to do these things, because I want to like the map. Like I want to like the map when I see so many things that I like, and I think that's the thing. If you give, if the designers give me something to like, then there's something I can do about that. So yeah, this area I could have entered it from two different places, but because I just never happened to go in from those angles, then I don't know what that sign says, by the way. I think it says, "Are you ready?" Another cheesy 90s thing. But yeah, that sends out an arch file, not only here, but I think one in the central hallway, which always I feel like is a good way to round things out. I don't know if you were supposed to get to this part at this point. Maybe you are, because these lockers, the only other place that I see these are when I opened up stuff with the red key, or the yellow key to get the red key. So maybe that is what's supposed to happen. Yeah, I think we'll see the other arch file here. Maybe not. Maybe he spawns in later. Well, anyway, so that switch you can actually see. Thankfully, that was actually telegraphed. Oh yeah, there we go. There's the arch file. And you can see I can go back through into the center now, which is kind of interesting. This, by the way, this central hallway is very similar to a hallway, not just in Paul Schmidt's other level, but especially in Sfera Kvernmo's level, Timeslip. There's an exit area with these cool lighting effects, that it has that blue texture. So I think it's a callback to that. There are interesting attempts to connect the maps in this set, and they do an okay job, but it isn't really exactly coherent with this map. You know, with the set, there's not really telling a story. It's just like kind of a way to tie together some of these areas. It's not like something like Alt or whatever, where you can feel a little bit more of a narrative connection between individual maps. But I think it's just interesting because you look at these maps and they are really trying to go beyond Doom. They're trying these like much more higher concepts. They're really trying to push the game. But if you look at a lot of contemporary Doom maps, they'll settle on one particular idea or mechanic or something that is really what people feel like is the heart of Doom and like more elegant or whatever. But there isn't that sort of weird sense of, I don't know, using it as a canvas for creative expression and just doing whatever the fuck you want, and more of a sense of like, oh, I have to make this, really effective, good Doom map. And I think that's what I kind of am disappointed by with a lot of modern sets. And that's why I don't feel like you see people trying to push that as much, or if it is, it's in a limited way, because people like the retro games and the experience that they offer. I'm going to finish this map with 9% health, because why not? Yeah, this is the exit. I just needed to go through there. I didn't actually really need to kill him, but it kind of was impossible to avoid fighting him so that I could activate that switch. So yeah. Map 28, Timeslip. I don't know what the war cry thing is. But yeah, hopefully showing you this is like a way of imparting the knowledge of what these sets were trying to do, and like the ways that they were trying to push beyond just the constraints of a particular game. And I think I really like that adventurousness, even when it's dated or, has some cheesy elements to it. So I think that's what I wanted to impart. In the future, I'll try and go to more modern sets. This is it with Eternal Doom, so thank you so much for watching.